Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we complete our study of the Song of Deborah in Judges chapter 5. So this is the third portion of the song. And in this portion of the song, Deborah turns her attention to the heroic deeds of Yael. Yael was the woman who assassinated Sisera. Sisera was the enemy general who was running from the battlefield as his forces were being routed by Barak, and as he knew he was being chased down by the Israelite soldiers, he ran to the tent of Hever Hakeni, who was one of the descendants of Jethro, who was apparently had sided with the Canaanites and gave intel to Sisera. So Sisera assumed he was friendly. He came to his tent, and Yael, his wife, welcomed him into the tent. He asked for water. She gave him milk, and he was sleepy. And when he fell asleep, she took a tent peg and a hammer and hammered it into the temple of his skull, thus assassinating him. So that story we read together when we studied Judges 4. Today, Deborah is going to sing her praises for Yael for her bravery and her deeds, assassinating the enemy general, thus reducing the possibility that Yavin could somehow muster up his forces again and counterattack. So verse 24, Tivorach minashim Yael. Most blessed, or the most blessed of all of the women is Yael. Eshet Hever Hakeni, she is the wife of Hever the Kenite. Minashim ba'ohel tivorach, from all of the women in the tent. And here it means the tent as a broad term, not a specific tent, but all of the women of the tent, tivorach, from all of them she is the most blessed. The women of the tent is because in general, in those days, it was assumed that the place of the woman is in the home, is in the tent. So she was of the women in the tent. It's also, Yael's life was different than Deborah herself. Deborah herself was out there. She was under the tree, the Tomer Deborah, the palm tree. She was the prophetess. She was the judge. Whereas Yael was a more traditional female role, the woman of the tent, to whom Sisera went, assuming that he would get a warm and welcoming home with food and drink and a place to sleep and so on. So Yael had a different kind of life. So she was from the Nashim Ba'ohel, as opposed to Deborah herself, who was from the Tomer Deborah, the one who was out there. Mayim Sho'al, he asked for water. This is verse 25. Chalav nasana, but she gave him milk. This was clever because milk fills you up, makes you full, and makes you more sleepy. B'seifel adirim, in a seifel, which is a bowl of adirim, of great people, meaning a grand bowl. She gave, she treated him well in order to make him feel comfortable, feel at home, feel safe, and let his guard down. That's the key. Let his guard down, because and think of her as his friend. Hikriva chem'ah, she gave him chem'ah. Chem'ah is, in modern Hebrew, translates as butter. This might mean cheese of some sort. She gave him, heavy dairy food that fills you up and makes you feel tired. Yada layasei tishlachna, and then when he fell asleep, she took her hand and sent it. Literally means sent her hand, or her hand reached to grasp the yaseid, the tent peg. Vimina lahalmut amelim, and her right hand went to the hammer of workers. That they used to pound the peg into the ground. Vihalmas Sisra, and then she hammered Sisra machakaro sho, and crushed his head. Umachatsa v'chalfa rakaso, and she cracked and broke open his temple. Pretty gory stuff. Verse 27, Bein ragleha, between her legs, korash nafal shachav. Now this Bein ragleha is sometimes translated that there was some sort of a sexual connotation here. Occasionally, we people interpret this story that she kind of seduced him somehow, but that's not really what the verses in, as we read the story in chapter 4 and here in chapter 5. There's nothing sexual. Anything that said is from people's imagination, which is fine if they want to imagine things that way. But the story was portrayed without any such connotations. The story was portrayed with Yael being the homekeeper who made him safe and feel comfortable at home and gave him to eat and gave him a blanket and a place to lie down and so on. There's no indication in these verses. Bein raglea here doesn't mean between her legs in a sexual way. It means at her feet. And the translation of the JPS translates as at her feet as opposed to between, which is, I think, a much more accurate translation. So Bein ragleha kara nafal shachav, at her feet, he bent over and he fell, lying down flat. Bein ragleha kara nafal, at her feet, he kara and he bent over and he fell. It uses a language kara, which is what the language often used when one falls in front of a king, prostrates himself, bows in front of the king. This is giving the image that this powerful, mighty general falls in front of the feet of a woman of the tent. The image that he's completely and totally subdued. Ba'asher kara shom nafal shodud. The place where he sank down in front of her, that's where he remained lying down as a finished, destroyed, completely devastated general. Be'ad hachalon. And now Deborah, in this dramatic ending, turns her attention to another mother. Remember, Deborah said to herself, she is the aim of Yisrael. She is an aim be Yisrael. She was the mother of the people of Israel, leading them to victory. And she portrayed it. Remember, the first two parts of the song we studied together, remembered it as how the morale of the people was lifted because they remembered their covenant with God, that they strengthened themselves to defend themselves. They used to be afraid and they used to cower when they went out of the city to get water. They were afraid of getting shot with arrows. People weren't traveling on the highways because of the marauding bands, and the government taxation on the roads was onerous and oppressive, and the people were cowering. They wouldn't live out in the villages. They cowered behind the walls of the protected cities. They were afraid. They were lowly. But now they were proud. Now they were the victors. Now, because they recognized and reestablished their special relationship with God, they had the strength and the courage to fight. And to fight for their freedom. That's how she portrayed the victory that the Israelites had over the Canaanites. But what kind of victory were the Canaanites fighting for? So this is how Deborah portrays that. She portrayed herself as the mother who encouraged the people of Israel to fight for their freedom. But what did the mother in Sisera's camp do? Well, let's look now. Ba'ad hachalon nishkefa. In a window, somewhere in Sisera's hometown, there was, looking out the window, Vatiyabev, and Aim Sisera ba'ad ho'eshnav, and the mother of Sisera, standing at the behind the curtain or the shutters or lattice, the work of the window, was crying and wondering and whining. The abev is like a language of whining, kind of like the sound of the shofar, just like whining, crying. Where's my son? Madua bosheshrich bolavo? Why is it taking so long for my son's chariot to come home? Madua echeru pa'amei markivosav? Why that sound of the chariot as it clatters along the road? Why are they in so much delay? Imagining that something. She can't even imagine, of course, that he was defeated. So where is he? Where's my son? I want to see him come in victory. And what did all of the women there say? The women of that tent? Chachmoso ta'anena, the smart ones of those that attended to her, are those that were also fellow noble women, and would answer her and say, Afhi tashiv amoreh Allah. And she too says to herself, in other words, all of the people around her and she herself comforts herself by saying, oh, they're busy dividing up the spoils. They are busy dividing up the spoils of war. Yeah, they're busy. They had such a tremendous victory. They have so much to divide up. And then they use the term racham rachamasayim l'rosh gever. Each and every man is getting himself one or two Israelite girls. Now the choice word here that she uses for the Israelite girls that they're winning in this war, that they're all taking for themselves, is a extremely vulgar way of referring to a woman. They refer to them literally as a racham, which is literally translates as a womb, right? They're not even the girls are just sexual things. They're literally referring to the women by their female sexual organ, referring to them as a uterus, or as a receptacle for a baby, like not even looking at them as human beings. This is the way they referred to the captive Israelite girls, that they're assuming they're in the middle of dividing up who gets which. Shalal tziva'im l'sisra, and then all of these nice, beautiful, colored clothing that Sisra is going to get from the spoils. Shalal tziva'im rikma, the spoils of all of the woven cloths of high quality. Around every neck of those soldiers, that they're all going to get colorful woven garments. This is the image that Deborah portrays of the mothers of Sisera and the mothers of the soldiers that fought for Sisera, interested in abusing and molesting the young women of Israel as spoils, and they're thinking about this. Then they're proud of their sons and how their sons are they're imagining them behaving. Oh, they're late because they're busy, just enjoying them all of this wonderful bounty that they just won in war. The contrast between that image and the image of Deborah as the Ein B'Yisrael is stark, and it's one of the most dramatic parts of this song, and it's so unique and special because from the perspective of a woman, it's so much more powerful. Only a woman could come up with this kind of image, the kind of woman and the pride that Deborah has in her people, the pride that Deborah has in her people and the dedication to God, versus the pride of the mother of Sisera in her son as he rapes and pillages. This is the contrast. And if you take one takeaway from this song, take this away from this song. Cain Yovdu, and Deborah ends her thing saying, if this what we just saw in this battle, the destruction of these awful, horrific, oppressive enemies, so shall all of your enemies, God, be lost and destroyed. Cain Yovdu kol oyevecha Adonai, v'ohavav kitzeis hashemesh b'gvuraso. But those who love Him, those who love God, they shall be like the sun when it rises in its strength. That is the end. She ends with that short prayer, but powerful prayer, as after she contrasted what the people of Sisera are like by describing the mother, and the people of Israel are like describing herself as the mother. Vatishkot haaretz 40 shana, and peace reigned upon the earth for the next 40 years. It would seem that Deborah remained the prophetess and the judge for the next 40 years. This concludes the Song of Deborah and chapter 5. Looking forward to studying chapter 6 and the rest of this book of Judges together.